attention on the program today is on the House of Representatives. More than 1,500 bills considered, out of which 1,008 bills await second reading. 88 are before standing committees, 69 await consideration, while 10 bills have been consolidated. In this report, National Assembly correspondent Joke Adisa takes a critical look at the activities of the House led by the Speaker, Abbas Tajuddin.
On the 13th of June, history was made when an unassuming, humble and three-time member, Abbas Tajuddin, was unanimously elected as the Speaker of the 10th House.
I, Abbas Tajuddin.
He took the oath of office along with his deputy, Benjamin Kalu, with a mission to make a remarkable impact in the lives of the people.
Honorable colleagues, our responsibilities as lawmakers require diligence, probity, transparency, dedication, and commitment to national interest.
The 10th National Assembly recorded the highest turnover of experienced lawmakers, as more than 70% of the 360 members of the House are first-timers. The leadership admitted it was a major challenge and set out on a capacity-building journey. Delta State lawmaker Francis Wahibe is the chairman Committee on Rules and Business. He says the House is beginning to see the reward of the many training and retrainings of the last 12 months.
About 80% new members coming into Parliament. But it's been a very exciting time. Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, he took the bull by the horn. First, to deal with the issues of capacity, since we had lost a lot of experienced members. So there's been a lot of trainings, both as a House and at committee levels. And that is beginning to yield fruits.
He says in the last 1 year, the House has considered more than 1,500 bills. Out of these, 1,008 await second reading, 88 are before standing committees, 69 await consideration, while 10 bills have been consolidated. 679 motions have also been passed, majority of which deal with the nation's security challenges. The House unveiled an 8-point legislative agenda in November 2023. The working document speaks to priority areas representing the vision and mission of the House, with a target to align with the renewed hope agenda of the executive.
I've just told you why.
Ezenwa Nwago is the chairman Partners for Electoral Reform and a public affairs analyst. He shares with me his perception of the 10th National Assembly.
Really happy that the adversarial disposition that a lot of people think about the National Assembly, I mean the legislature, in terms of its relationship with the executive, there seems to be more cooperation. There seems to be more principled cooperation, in my view, than what it used to be. And I qualify it as principled because we are not seeing all those unnecessary struggle for, territory.
Beyond these, controversies have trod some of its oversight functions. The latest is when some members of the Haddock Committee, which investigated alleged job racketeering in government agencies, were accused of corruption. Allegations of graft were also leveled against some members by Binance, though the leadership of the House rose stoutly in defense of its members. These parliamentary reporters also give their assessment of the performance of the 10th House and the challenges ahead.
Any seconder?
I can see compared to the other assemblies that I've covered, this 10th assembly so far, I've seen their effort. You understand? Unlike in the past whereby you see that new lawmakers are not prone to moving motions and bills.
But I'm not really satisfied with their attendance to plenary. If you study them very well, you realize that we've not really had, apart from on the day of inauguration and the day the Speaker announced committees, we've not had up to half of them, or more than half of them, attending plenaries. And plenaries is where you carry out one of the major functions of the National Assembly, which is lawmaking.
As it begins the second of a 4-year term, the House says constitution review, devolution of power, security, and more effective oversight functions are some of its focus. It seeks the support of the citizens towards making a mark as it continues its journey to achieving good governance. Joke Edson, TVC News.
Joining me now is spokesperson, House of Representatives, Akintunde Rotimi Jr. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Honorable, happy anniversary and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Nifemi, and good evening, viewers.
All right, so let's dive in. 70% of the 10th National Assembly members, including yourself, Honorable, are first-time lawmakers. The leadership at the time acknowledged this as a challenge and initiated some capacity-building efforts. But how has this influenced legislative process and the effectiveness of lawmaking as we know it in the past year?
Thank you very much for that question. But first of all, I think it's a little inaccurate to say that they're actually about 77%, but they're not exactly new lawmakers. So we have very many from that number, first-timers in the National Assembly, but very many of them had served in different capacities in state houses of assembly. So I believe that that also counts because in the House so far we have at least 8 people that were 8 members of the 10th Assembly that were speakers of state houses of assembly, and then several other members that were also members of state houses of assembly. So I think that there is some degree of capacity in terms of lawmaking that was brought to the House. But yes, we must acknowledge the fact that there was a huge turnover between the 9th and the 10th Assembly, which of course, it's not very good, to be honest. I was a beneficiary of it as well, but it's not very good for the institution, like you know. But leadership rose up to the occasion to ensure that a lot of capacity building initiatives were put in place to ensure that, new lawmakers could come up to speed as quickly as possible. But I must also give credit to leadership for making sure that even in the process of, our plenary sessions, you see Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, and the Deputy Speaker, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, when they do preside, you see, them being very intentional about the hand-holding process to make sure that new lawmakers come up to speed as quickly as possible. So when
Honorable
you see the output, yes, please.
Yes. I used to be in handheld now. 1 year after, how long did it take to
That's why I said, well, in the initial, Yes, in the initial days, first of all, the capacity building was put in place. There was a lot of, training sessions, a lot of, retreats, a lot of capacity development initiatives. And I must give credit to to NILS as well, the Institute for Legislative and Development Studies that also rose to the occasion, right from the quality of engagements at, the induction retreat, and all through. But, I was also going to mention that because of how intentional leadership has been, there's been a lot of mentoring of older members that have institutional memory with the younger, with the fresh new lawmakers. So within the state caucuses, for example, in Ekiti State, there are 6 of us in the National Assembly, but we have Right Honorable Olufemi Bamishile and Shola Fatoba who are ranking members, while 4 other people are new to Parliament. So within the state caucuses, there's a lot of mentorship that goes on. Within the Southwest Caucus, for example, in the Southwest, you have Right Honorable James Faleke, who is a ranking, very experienced member, and he's brought his, capacity to bear in helping younger people get up to speed really quickly. So yes.
I get it clearly that you got a lot of help, from the leadership of the House. Sounds interesting. Let's talk about what critics call the harmonious relationship we've seen between the executive and legislative arm in the past year, which they say can potentially undermine checks and balances and the very principle of separation of powers. Do you agree that this level of cordiality is unprecedented?
Well, I agree to a large extent that it's unprecedented, but I think it's a plus rather than a minus. As we know, even on the executive side of government, there's a term that some civil society, watchers have given it, the flexes that from legislator to executive. So Mr. President himself, is an alumnus of the National Assembly. The First Lady is an alumnus of the National Assembly. So is the SGF, the Secretary to Government of the Federation, the Chief of Staff. The Vice President himself is, from the National Assembly. And then even from the House of Reps, even from the 10th, Assembly, you have people like Honorable Minister Abumi Tunji Ojo. You have Dr. Sununu, who is, Minister of State for Education. You have several people who have been in the legislature. So you can understand that they understand the processes. They understand the legislative process. They know what it is to ensure there's inclusion and people are carried along in reaching critical decisions. So I don't think, any insinuations about the fact that we've been ineffective in holding the executive to account.
Those who say the 10th House, for instance, acts as a rubber stamp for the executive have cited instances like the swift passage of executive-sponsored bills, minimal opposition to controversial policies. In the House of Reps, for instance, there is, an appreciable number of opposition lawmakers. But they say this government hasn't seen much of opposition in the past year. Are there examples in the past year that have demonstrated otherwise?
Well, I don't think it's correct that you've not had, that degree of opposition. For us, the voices of dissent, voices of, contrary voices to what might be considered popular, have been protected, particularly within the parliament, and that goes to underscore the quality of our debates, that despite the fact that we have a large number of opposition lawmakers, people are heard. Everyone is heard. Everyone is given, a chance to speak. So when you talk about accelerating executive bills, I mean, some might give the example of maybe the appropriation bill and some other things. We gave those concessions to the executive arm of government. It's been a new administration, their first budget cycle. Yes, it might have come in a little late, but it also came with very stern, I wouldn't say warnings, but admonitions to the executive that this won't be accepted next time. So I don't think that for the 2025 budget you would have the same situation where we would have to bend backwards to rush to be able to pass the executive bill. So for us, everything that has come has been scrutinized very sternly. Our bills and motions have always demonstrated that when we do disagree with certain actions of the government, it's brought to the floor, it's debated. If it's passed, it's passed on to the executive arm of government. So it's not been a case of rubber stamp. These are things that just get into our lexicon some way over the years, and we like to rehash it over time. The 10th Assembly has been far from being a rubber stamp.
Let us attempt to break it down. For instance, when you consider what people call the harsh economic policies of this administration, what has the House of Reps done, for instance, to stabilize Nigeria's fiscal and monetary environment? Inflation rates reached some 33% last month, and the Naira is experiencing severe depreciation. What specific legislative measures are being proposed in this regard?
So thank you very much. First of all, is to acknowledge the fact that things are really difficult. And that's one thing that we can't say enough, because we are the ones that engage with our people, and we'll be deceiving ourselves and doing Nigerians great injustice to not to admit the fact that things are really challenging. But again, we recognize the fact that, yes, the executive arm of government has had to lead the country in the direction of taking very difficult decisions in our best interest. For one, the removal of the fuel subsidy regime was something that, was a decision that all the leading, presidential candidates in the 2023 general election had said that, look, they're going to remove it. It was something that was going to be removed. So for us, everything that's going on now, right, very, it's a phase that the country is going through. And I believe that things are going to get a lot better. We are of the opinion that things are going to get a lot better. Parliament has argued over and again that We don't want band-aid solutions. Yes, we welcome issues of palliatives, but we want longer-term solutions to these issues to ensure that Nigerians have power, to be able to run, small businesses. Nigerians have access to credit, which you're already seeing happening. We also, very swiftly passed the student loan bill to ensure that Nigerian students and young people can access credit to be able to concentrate on their studies. So all these measures we have supported very largely, right? Backward integration to make sure that value addition in country is prioritized to ensure that we're a productive economy, because we also realize that the long-term solution to the foreign exchange crisis is when we get into massively producing within our country for export and also for self-sufficiency.
I hear you clearly, Honorable. We have to go on a quick break. The House has had its fair share of controversies in the past year, and we're going to be talking about that shortly. Stay with us, everyone.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu, do solemnly swear.
Akintunde Rotimi Jr. is the member representing Ekiti North 1, Ikolioye, in the 10th House of Representatives. Is also House spokesman and chairman House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. Honorable, thank you for staying the course on the program this evening. So let's also explore some of the controversies in the past year. The House, from allegations of job racketeering in government agencies to 100 billion naira zonal intervention project. How are you addressing concerns regarding transparency and accountability, especially considering that many of these projects remain largely incomplete and in some cases untraceable in the past years?
Okay, so first of all, it's starting from the last point you made in the past years. What past year? This is our first budget cycle, which has barely even started being implemented. So what you find again is that I like to create that distinction between the House of Representatives and the 10th Assembly. We are trying as much as possible to have a clean break from the past. Because anytime people bring up these issues, it's always about, things that have happened in previous years. Okay, so hold us to account to what it is that the 10th Assembly. We have a House Committee on Constituency Outreach, who's very particular about ensuring that, all of these projects, that go into the various constituencies are implemented to the letter. We have over, like you rightly said, over 75% new members that also worry very much about the historical, reputational deficits and the fact that, at every point in time we face immense distrust from Nigerians. We know that. Everyone faces that. I face that. So it is our duty and, our resolve that we're going to make a difference by ensuring that every single thing in our care, right, is properly implemented. And I'll take this opportunity to also correct a notion. When people talk about, constituency projects and, this lawmaker got this amount, a lot of Nigerians wrongly think that these amounts are given to you as a lawmaker, and that's not the case. It's simply a thing that was introduced several assemblies ago to say that to address the complaint about uneven spread of development, let us allocate an amount that would allow for lawmakers to be able to nominate projects that they believe is priorities within their constituencies to be able to implement. So these monies never get to your hand. It's not that it's given to you, because it's a very common misconception. No monies are given to lawmakers. All of these projects are domiciled.
I don't think Nigerians care much about whether the money gets to lawmakers. They just want the money to have as much impact, on their immediate environment, on the projects that's been earmarked for. And that has been the consensus over the years.
So that is why, the price we have to pay for our journey of democratization, like I say, Nigeria is always a work in progress. The journey to democracy, it's never a destination, it's a journey. The price we have to pay is eternal vigilance, right? People get a copy of the budget. Find everywhere your constituency is mentioned. Find, and there are non-profits that are doing that. I know Code, I know Follow the Money Project. There's several other non-profits that are following projects. If every single community, stakeholders, individuals, active citizens begin to ask questions, that this was, there'll be greater amounts of, transparency and accountability. But for us, right, we have resolved as a house, it is in our legislative agenda as the 10th Assembly, that we're going to prioritize open engagement with our people. We're going to prioritize inclusion of our people. Not only are we going to ensure that projects that are within the budget are implemented to the letter, we're going to also ensure that even contractors that are sent from the various MDAs coming to town also prioritize engaging locals, right? So that we have that dimension of local content in what it is that we do. Again, I understand and I appreciate the fact that over the years we've had those trust issues. But I believe over time we are slowly earning the trust of Nigerians again, that the 10th
Honorable,
is
talking about
trust,
because we have to leave in 2 minutes. It's hard to tell whether you are winning the trust. Some citizens, for instance, say you and your colleagues are disconnected from the realities faced by ordinary people. The recent controversy online has to do with the approval of substantial salary increases for legislators amidst the economic hardships. How do you think the 10th Assembly is under so much pressure to build that trust that you talked about and to stand out from the rest? And what efforts are you making in that regard? If you can answer in a minute.
Well, so there are those efforts to correct, a lot of fake news, a lot of exaggerations, a lot of disinformation. We saw those, videos making the rounds and across social media, and there was a debate on the floor, and appropriate action will be taken about people purveyors of this fake news. I can tell you very categorically, sir, that the earnings of lawmakers every month, if you check my pay slip, it is 600,000 or a little less than that on the month. So when someone comes and tells you that furniture allowance will be given every month, you begin to worry that, don't people know how these things work? And isn't it things that are given within 4 years?
Honorable, did I hear you?
4 years. I beg your pardon, just wait a minute, just a minute. Let me just clarify that. I just want to be sure
I heard what you said, Honorable. Did you say you earn 600K
per month? You heard correctly, sir. Yes, and I can show you my payslip if you want. Yes. So again, when you talk about housing allowance, and then someone says you're giving 4.9 million naira once every month, and does that make any sense? It doesn't. You're giving 4.9 million naira once in 4 years. So if you look at it shouldn't sound as though one, is sounding, entitled to live off Nigerians or anybody. You look at it. How much of accommodations are you able to get with 5 million naira for 4 years? So you see, when the difference is when someone comes and tells you that is given monthly, it is wrong. So we are moving in the direction of full disclosure. We are happy. The reason there have been a lot of distortions, a lot of exaggerations has been because there's been that opacity. We are moving in the direction of greater transparency so that Nigerians can have access to this information, sir.
We have completely run out of time, and that's why we should have this conversation more often.
Always make time out for us to have these conversations, because it's always a pleasure to engage.
Akintunde Rotimi-Daniels, Jr., member representing Ekiti North 1, Ikoleoye, House spokesman, Chairman, House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. Thank you so much for talking to us. You can watch this interview again at midnight.
Thank you for having me.
At 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.